All right, I just got on Google real quick to see what time church started tomorrow, to see what time I have to get up. Did you know that Google, like churches have Google reviews? I can't stop looking at them. So don't you love this Airbnb? It's just such like a Chip and Joe vibe in here. Love this shit. Wow, just kidding, it's my friend's house. Anyway, I feel like I do like a considerable amount of roasting of church and Christian culture and things like that. But honestly, sometimes church needs to be defended because these reviews, I'm already mad. All right, I'm going to show you some of these. I'm going to try to screenshot it and put these are actual real reviews from real people. I skip all the 5-star reviews, you know what I'm saying? I get, we love this church, it's perfect, saved my life, let's go to the 1 stars.
Just got bored quick. Worship is not great, and the message was too monotone and screamy for me. Hey, you know what the opposite of monotone is? Screamy. These two words are the exact opposite. It's like saying, hey, turn the music down, I can't hear well. What?
Shout out to every pastor right now up Saturday night working on his message for the morning, working tirelessly. Because if I was a pastor and I saw my church's 1-star reviews, I'd be like, what's your address? I'm coming over right now. I only got 2 cheeks to turn after that. It is on.
4 stars instead of 5, because there was no worship after this service. Hey, you know in China it's illegal to go to church? Yeah, and you gotta walk miles in secret. Yeah, no, tell us more though. Tell us more. The worship leader looked like he just got done mowing the yard. I've seen a lot of worship leaders in my day. I can't say the man's wrong. This is a review for a church called Church Without Walls. I was pretty disappointed when I got there and saw all kinds of walls. There was so many, very misleading name. Everything else was cool though. This guy gets it. The point of Google reviews, there is no point. Might as well make a joke.
I understand like not choosing like a mechanic or like an Airbnb or something based on its rating. Who's not going to a church based on its Google rate? If you're doing, you know what? Don't come to my
lead daughter and I attended. Absolutely loved the service from baptism to communion. My family will be back. 1 star. Yeah, that's not how the star system works, Latasha. Come on. Not very welcoming. No one said hello or goodbye. This is actually good. This gets it. I gotta chill. This gets. What do you want to play? Chubby Bunny? You need an icebreaker? We're not in middle school. Go shake somebody's hand. Introduce yourself. It's fine. We were not comfortable coming to the front and holding hands and giving outspoken prayer. White people are still doing this? 3 stars is generous. That is the most uncomfortable. My name is John.
That actually at 3 stars is, I had to do that one time at youth camp, stand up, say my name, and an adjective that started with my first initial. It was 100% true. I was like, my name is John, I'm joyful. And then I like, for sure, like shot a kid at archery. I was not.
Other people made fun of me and they called me a Satanist for wanting to learn Latin. Did they though? Also learn Latin, learn English. Okay, that's too far. God, I think this guy gets the point of, he understands the real meaning of church, you know? 1 star, paninis were terrible. I'm gonna look at how far you've lasted in this story. I gotta go to bed. This is a rabbit hole. I can't keep going down. If you got a negative review at your church, please send it to me. I'd love to have a good laugh at it. Also, if you're Google reviewing a church, well, honestly, I can't wait for some of y'all to go to heaven and run into someone from like the 1st century church. Oh, what are you up to? Oh, I gave my church 3 stars. I wasn't satisfied. Oh, tell me more. It happened last time I went to my church in Ephesus. Yeah, we was in the middle of worship and a bunch of Roman guards came in and arrested everyone for being Christian and took us to jail. No, tell us more about how the seats weren't cushioned properly.
Oh, I don't know if you've ever heard John Christ. He's hilarious. Just got some really, really funny stuff. But I think when we see that, right, when we see a video like, oh, man, everybody has an opinion, right? I mean, everybody just has a way that they're seeing things. And in that, right, how are we supposed to have unity? Like, it's so hard to have any type of unity when we have all these different, the paninis, right? Come on. The paninis weren't great, and that ruined my church experience. And that's actually how some people feel, and hopefully not in this room. And we don't have paninis, so I guess we don't have to worry about that. But it's really good. So today we're going to talk about this idea of unity in the church. And, I have to tell you, as I was studying through this, I came into the sermon and the message a lot differently than I ended up. And I actually was thinking, man, I just, I need to hammer in some of these thoughts. And as I'm going through and studying through unity and studying through what Jesus has to say about it, I'll tell you, God just began to break my heart and to show me how much I'm missing and how ununifying I am through all this. And so it's been a real challenge to me in a good way of saying, man, to help me refocus on why is this so important to God? Why is unity one of those things that just without it, we're in big trouble? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So let me start off with this. It's just real simple. Unity, the definition is just basically like oneness, right? It means complete or like no fracturing. Right, so when we think about unity, we think about something that's complete, it's whole, there's not a lot of other things you can add to it, it's already there. And so when we think about a church, and I'm talking big church, not just this church, but the church as a whole, like the church, the idea that Jesus said, hey, is that we would have unity together. Now, that's really difficult because we have different people with different personalities, different backgrounds, different cultures, different DNA, all those different things coming together to worship God or to learn who He is or even learn about God, and we're supposed to have unity. So again, we're going to kind of unpack that. Like, how do we do that? How do we stop? What are some things we actually do that stop it from happening? What are some things we can do to make it happen better? And what's it look like when we actually live out that way? And as a church, we live in unity. What kind of impact can we make? And so those are kind of the things we're going to touch on this morning. So when I first started studying, I said, hey, like, how does Jesus see unity? Like, what does Jesus say about it, right? Because if we're going to talk about unity, we want to go to the guy who knows all about it. And so turn your Bibles to John chapter 17, verse 20, and we'll start there. Or you can look up on the screen. We have everything, all the scriptures up here. So let me set this up for you. In John 17, verse 20, Jesus is praying, or Jesus is talking, and he says this, and he says, my prayer is not for them alone. Now, when he says that, let me kind of background, what he's doing is he's praying for the disciples, because the disciples, are about to go out and do a lot of big work. And so he's saying, hey, I'm praying for the disciples, but he says, my prayer is not for the disciples alone. And he says, I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message. Okay, so that's the second part. So, hey, I'm praying for the disciples, but I'm also praying for everyone. This prayer is about everyone who's going to hear the message of the disciples. Now, who is that? Who are the people who are hearing the disciples' message? Right, it's us. Yeah, you got it right there. She's like, yeah, it's us. Like, it's us, right? And that's everybody's sense. And so when we look at the scripture, what we're seeing is Jesus is praying for us, and he's praying something specific for us that's really, really important to him, right? I'm praying for the disciples, and I'm praying because I want everybody who's after this to know this. And what does he want them to know? What does he want them to know? He says this, verse 21, he says, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. You catch that? So what was really important to Jesus, what was extremely important, was not just the disciples and what they were doing, but the later church where we are today, this is you and I, that we, all of us, that all of them may be one, may be unified or may be complete, right, without fracture. And then he says, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. And so the picture is the church should be unified just as the Trinity or God himself is unified. Isn't that kind of powerful? So we have kind of that idea of the same heart, right? We have that idea of we're intimately involved and concerned with each other's existence. There's this deep mutual concern and participation in each other's lives. That's kind of what this oneness is that he's talking about. And so he's saying this about the church. He's saying, hey, that all you guys would be one, Father, just as you and I, or you are in me and I am in you. And then he says this, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. Wow. So there's somehow this unity when you have it, and it's lived out, that people, right, understand, right, they'll believe who Jesus is because of it. Now that's a pretty powerful statement that Jesus made. So he's saying when the church is one, when the church is unified, when the church is complete, the world sees Jesus in the right light. So you can also say, if the church isn't complete, or it isn't one, and it isn't unified, you can deduct that, hey, then Jesus, right, the world isn't going to see Jesus in the right light. So then he goes on to say this, yes, verse 22, it says, so I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. Okay, again, this is a unity thing. Now, we talked about glory a little bit last week. I don't know if you remember, if any of you were here. I love that word glory. It just means it's like significance. It's this idea of having like significance. So listen to what he says. So Jesus is saying, so I've given the church significance. Okay, I've given them the significance that you gave me. Now hold on. That's huge. Okay, because what kind of significance did God give Jesus on the earth? All significance. And so he says the church, right, is a picture of the relationship of God to the world. And so I have given them the glory that you gave me. So guys, we've been given this incredible significance, right? It crushes down all kinds of barriers when there's unity. It infiltrates whole cultures and societies when there's unity. When people come together, it's unstoppable when there's unity in Christ, right? And there's significant, and God set that up. Jesus set that up for us. Why? That we may be as one as we are one, so that the church may be as one as God and Jesus are as one. Listen as it goes on. Hopefully this will break this down a little bit more. It says, I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Okay? So again, the picture is like, hey God, I'm praying for the church. This is what we created. We created the church to be our hands and feet on the earth, right? I mean, if you want, that's really what they're saying. And they are one with us just as they are one with each other. And then what's the reason for that, right? So that they may be brought to complete unity. So the idea, the goal, the heart, right, is having this complete oneness with one another. It's like, wow. And so I don't know about you, but you start thinking, well, do we see the church in the world, right, have oneness? Like, you don't need to answer, that's just a rhetorical question. But when you look around, are churches more working together or against each other? When you ask somebody who doesn't go to church, maybe has no, and you say, hey, tell me about what you think about Christians. What do they say? Oh man, they're the most loving. They're all together as one. They work well together. They just all believe the same. They're awesome. Or do they go, man, that's a bunch of hypocrites, right? Or those people, why do they fight so much? What's going on in there, right? And so that was never God's intention. Like, his intention was, right, that they would be brought to, that they would be brought to complete unity. And then he says this, what happens when the church comes to complete unity? It says this, then the world will know that you sent me and have loved me, or loved them even as much as you have loved me. Do you catch that? So when the church works together, like the goal, like Jesus says, hey, the end goal of this is that the world would know who I am. The world would know, right? And they would, like, oh my goodness, like this blows my mind, and it's so simple, and yet it's so difficult to make happen. Because I want to see that. I want to be a part of a church that's like that, right? Where someone sees the love and the oneness. It doesn't mean we have to agree on everything. We'll talk about that in a minute. But is there such a unity at the main things that we don't let the peripherals get in the way? Or do the peripherals get in the way and it ruins the unity and destroys what we have? And the world goes, gosh, yeah, you guys are nice people, but once you start getting along, maybe I'll think about it. You ever go out in public and you have a family, right? And you see the kids fighting on aisle 5 of Target? They're screaming and yelling at each other. Do you go, oh man, those are terrible kids? Or do you go, man, those parents, what's going on? All right, do you think people do the same with God? And they go, wow, yeah, those people are just, they're terrible with each other. Is that the God they worship? Right? So the reputation, God puts his reputation upon us. Man, that's a huge thing. And so Jesus is striving and saying, guys, oh, please, I want you to have this oneness and this unity. Well, what does that even mean, right? So what does that even mean? Well, let me go a little deeper. Like here's something we can't get past. Like, we are one in Christ in this room today. Like, we are one. Like, you guys, we're family. We are totally family here together. Whether you like it or not, right? We're family. Let's do this. Yeah, and I'm just kidding. Yeah, but you are family, and you can't change that. And so it doesn't matter where you come from, what's your background. If you follow Christ, you have a love for, like, you're in the family, and you're a part of the family, whether I agree or disagree with you or not. And family is not about our practices and our preferences. Right? That doesn't make us family. What makes you family is who your father is. Right? And my brother and I are drastically different in everything that we do. He is a genius. He knows everything about nothing. Like, I just love the guy. He's amazing. Like, you have any kind of stats or trivia, he just knows it all. I'm like, man, I'm not like that. I like working in the garage. I like, working on my car. I like doing that. He hates it. And we're just opposites. And we're totally different preferences. We have totally different ways of looking at things, but we're family. No matter what. He will always be my brother. Get it? You will always be my brothers and sisters. We get to be in eternity together whether you like it or not. If you're tired of me now, just wait till we get to heaven. Sorry, I'm going to be bugging you all, Because that's who we are family. And at the core, if we can understand and say, hey, you know what? There's no getting out of this. So then the question is, so for family, then how do we live together in unity? How do we live together? How do we live together in unity? Because unity exists regardless. And here's the hard part. Unfortunately, according to Jesus, unity doesn't come easy, right? And it's very hard to attain. It doesn't just, it'd be awesome if God just said, okay, well, once you're, like, everybody just has instant unity. Like, I'm going to control everything and make it happen. You're all going to be unified and happy together. No, he knows we're mature and we can handle it. We have to grow up and have growing to do and have to work together and do things together, just like a normal family. And so we get the opportunity to work through our junk. We get the opportunity to work through our likes and dislikes. We get the opportunity to grow together. And that's really what the church is about. So look at 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Look at verse 12. It says, talking about the church, it says, just as a body, right? You all have a body in here, I hope. Just as a body, though one, has many parts. And so the picture is right. The church is again, I know a lot of you know this picture, maybe some of you don't. The church is pictured as a body, and a body in itself, right, is only complete because it has all its parts. And so, though many, right, just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. Right, and so what he's saying is here, you guys are the parts, right? We're the parts. Some of you are pits, some of you are, cheeks, some of you are, teeth, I don't know. But we're all different parts, and we come together and we create the body of Christ. And then it goes on to say, that is kind of weird, but you get what he's getting at. Verse 13, it says, "For we were all baptized by one Spirit so as to form one body." Then it keeps on going. It says, "Whether Jews or Gentiles, slaves or free, and we were all given the one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many." I love this, right? Because what it's picturing is none of us are alike. We all have different ways, and yet we have to have unity. We have to have unity. Now let me explain this, because unity isn't uniformity. This is very important. And this is, I think, where we get caught up. I know where I get caught up. Because to be honest, I like it when people are like me, right? I've got a sick sense of humor. So when I get around people with a sick sense of humor, right, I'm like, yeah, I like this person, right? Because they're like, right, we naturally love people like ourselves. And we can't get away from that. And right? So the problem becomes, I know for me, and I don't know for you, is that when we put ourselves, right, we like to be around and be with people that are like ourselves. And that's not the church. Could you imagine a church of just yous? Some of you could. You would be the only one there, right? Like, imagine, right? Imagine a church of just your personality, right? As what, you know? Yeah, that would be kind of scary. Very scary. Yes. So I remember I took a trip to Caracas, Venezuela, and it was a missions trip, and we went to this place called La Dolorita, and it was kind of the city of hurt, I think that's what Dolorita means, but it was a city that was on a hillside, like a mud hillside, and they had just stacked up like these, aluminum siding. They built them into homes and just stacked on top of each other, and just terrible living conditions, and but there was a church there, and so this tiny little rundown, barely held up walls church was meeting, and we got to come in, and we just wanted to encourage the believers there and, support them and do what we can to help. And I remember walked in the room, and man, I fell in love with these people immediately. And I barely spoke the language. We had an all-night worship and prayer meeting. And I mean, all night, not like, hey, 10 minutes, I'm done, man. It was all night long. And we were praying and on our knees and weeping for the community and weeping for people, right? And I'm looking around, I'm saying, man, I cannot believe how close I feel to these people that I don't even know. What brought us together? God, the unity, right, of God at the center of our lives. People who I have nothing in common with. Like, there isn't anything, like, we have different everything, the way we view life, the way we grew up, everything, and yet we sat in this room and as a family worshiped together. And I didn't look at them and go, oh man, I didn't ask them their theological beliefs, I didn't ask them all I knew was that they loved Jesus and I loved Jesus, and we had a heart for the community, and we were going to do anything we can to reach the community for Christ. But yeah, and that, I'm not saying that what I'm saying that is, why can't we do that here? Why is it such a problem when I can't even approach maybe my neighbor who goes to a different church because we have maybe a tiny theological belief? This doesn't even matter. It's not even like on the radar. Oh, they don't do communion every week. Oh, can't go to that church. Do you understand and we get caught up in things that don't matter. And that begins to deteriorate the unity, right? And I just find it fascinating that I can have an instant connection with someone totally across. If I go to Africa and I meet with African, I have this total connection. But I have a hard time with someone, maybe he even goes to the same church, that doesn't believe the same thing. And we have more in common and more unity than I ever would with someone from a different country. Do you see how that works? It's kind of messed up. And so at the core, there's this idea of this common unity, right? And that's where we get the word community, is you have this common unity with people. And that's why life groups are so important to me. Because in those environments, it's not that everybody comes together and it becomes uniformity. it becomes, hey, I can start hearing and listening to who people are, how they view life maybe a little differently, and I can begin to learn from them, and they can learn from me. And I'm not trying to change them to my viewpoint. What I'm trying to do is understand them, right? And listen to why God is working that way in their life and acknowledging God working. Not that I'm like, well, God doesn't work in my life that way, so it must not be true. No, God's working in people's lives regardless of yours. But I focus on myself. And these are some of the convictions I'm getting as I'm putting this talk together. And I love our life group. I'm just going to brag about it because we got a group of motley people. I don't know if anybody in my life group's here today, so I'll throw them out. Oh, James is back there, right? I mean, we sit like this last Monday. We had some tough conversations. And actually, hey, the DeVosses are back there. And actually, there was a lot of pushback on, hey, well, I think this. And actually, a lot of this talk came out of that conversation. Because honestly, I was headed in a different direction. I was getting mad, and I was saying, hey, things need to be this way, this way, this way. And sweet little Lila Fraser's like, I don't think that's right. And she's like, what about being patient with people? And I'm all, patience? Oh, she's right. Right? She's right. And iron sharpens iron, and you begin to learn. And there's unity, right? There's unity and diversity. That's what we're aiming for, not uniformity and unity. And so there's this diversity where your strengths, your weaknesses, your experiences, your DNA, your background, your culture can just bring in this beautiful picture of and that's what heaven is. Picture of this beautiful church, all different types of people together, right? All different types of culture, and there's this incredible diversity and biblical unity. All right, I could preach on that forever. Let me go on. Let me move on. So how is unity then destroyed? Because this is important. And I made a list of like 50 things. I'm like, man, how unity is easy to destroy. How do we destroy it? And what I came out with was this. How's unity destroyed is this one term, me before others. Wherever you see this, unity can't exist. It's impossible. If I am more concerned with myself and my needs and my wants and what I think is right and what I think is wrong and standing on my beliefs, obviously Jesus is the center of that. We understand that as a church. I'm not saying that, hey, anybody can just believe what they want. No, I'm talking Jesus is the thing that centers us. But within that realm and those boundaries, me before others, that destroys unity. That rips it apart. Look at James chapter 3 with me. James chapter 3, look at verse 14. It says this. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth, right? So if you know someone who's envious, and let me explain what envious is. Envious is there's a jealousy there, but there's this also, it goes a little deeper. It's like an anger. Okay, so it's like turning really, really red when you don't get your way. Like when a kid, like you can't have any candy before you go to bed. And they're like, no, I want, yeah. And there's this jealous, there's this envy, there's this thing in them that just begins to come out, right? And so if you've never gotten your way, have you ever never gotten your way? I'm sure everybody here has always gotten their way. And you were really angry from it, right? That's what that envy, that's that picture of envy. So it's this, but if you harbor that bitter envy and that selfish ambition, right? And we all know what ambition is, right? It's like, hey, this is what I want. I'm going to push hard and I'm going to get what I want. It says this, verse 15, it says, such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. See, when we actually act this way, it is demonic. Like James is like, he's throwing it down. This is the Bible. It's saying, like, you're like inviting demons to the party. You're like, that is how deep can you go when you are being selfish? Like, see, we see things a lot differently, right? Oh, that's not too bad. That's kind of one of the lower sins. And James is like, no, this is huge. This is huge. Listen, as he goes on, it says this. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. So you ever been someplace where things just don't seem right here? right? And you're going, what is going on? Why is there disorder? Why is there things happening? Well, I'll tell you why. Because people are seeing me, right? They're seeing themselves before others. And disorder abounds when that happens. It cuts and destroys the unity that God is trying to create, that Jesus wants us to have in the church and in our lives and with each other. Right? Selfishness at the core, and again, that's a heart sermon talking about that. We're not talking about, but really deep down, right? There's a problem that we got to deal with, that we got to remove from our lives. And so I just find it fascinating. Nothing can be successful when there's envy and self-ambition. Nothing. Listen, it goes on, it goes even, it goes even deeper in Proverbs. Look at this one. This is so convicting. So there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Well, that's a nice verse, right? So how often do we talk about, hey, God is love? Yes, God is love. But there are actual things that God is, and the word hate translated there is the word hate. Like hate, like this is something that I want to repel. It is something detestable as I can't even be in its presence. And so there's this picture, right, of this, like God is like, okay, he has, if I had my top 10 list of sins, right, I realize they're different from God's. This is kind of God's top list. And so, and they're highly relational. Listen to what he says. So here's the things, haughty eyes, right? And that's not, I know that word today, like hot, like, it's like, hey, I'm hot, I guess, or girls, you do the smoky eye thing. Is that right? It says smoky eyes. I'm trying to do I have daughters, right? So they're always trying makeup stuff on me or on themselves. So haughty eyes, right? And haughty eyes basically means proud, like someone who's super proud, right? Someone who's like, hey, I got it all together. I don't need anybody else. I'm proud, right? I'm not going to go into detail on these. A lying tongue, right? Someone who's obviously lying. These are things that God hates. Hands that shed innocent blood, right? And again, this is huge. We are to protect those who need protecting. We're to protect the innocent. I mean, it's social justice at the core. If you see someone hurting, right? God is like a vindicator. He's like, go, that's why I called you, to protect those that need to be protected. So hands that shed innocent blood, he hates. A heart that devises wicked schemes. Before I became a man, I could devise 30 ways to sin differently. You know what I'm saying? And I probably still do it today. Because, right, right? And so, anyway, go on. Feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies. But look at this one, a person who stirs up conflict in the community. That's one of the ones he hates. This one would have been on my list. But he sees this as most important because unity is so important to him that he says a person who stirs up conflict, right? Someone who comes in and tries to destroy the unity that's going on. Someone who tries to divide the body of Christ. Someone who's causing problems. He's like, stop it. Selfishness annihilates unity. Selfishness annihilates unity. I can't get any clearer than that. And if I'm focusing on me, there can't be a we. It just doesn't work. So what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? So how's unity created then? How's unity created? Look at Ephesians 4. It says this, as a prisoner for the Lord, it's Paul talking, and he's in prison. He's in prison writing this. Paul's amazing. As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you, listen to what he says, to live a life worthy of the calling which you received. Now, basically what he's saying here is, are you smoking what you're selling? Right? Are you smoking what you're selling? You're claiming to be something, are you living it out, right? That's all Ephesians is. It's saying, hey, this is how you should live, this is how you do it. That's the book of Ephesians. So here he's kind of dividing Ephesians, and he's saying, hey, if you have to live a life worthy of the calling with which you're called, and worthy at the core means, do I really believe, and am I really living out what I believe? right? So it isn't enough to just say I know it, but actually live it out, right? So this is where we get hypocrites from, people who don't live it out. And so Paul's saying, hey, I'm urging you, live a life, right, worthy of that calling. Practice what you preach. Practice what you believe. And then he says this, verse 2, be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. I don't like that. Be completely humble, right? These are the opposites almost of the things God hates. Be completely humble, be gentle, be patient. That we're bearing with one another. These are all highly relational words and create unity when we're humble, when we're gentle, when we're patient with one another, right? When we bear with one another. Bearing with one another is like going up a hill together and you're trying to hold that person and you're not going to let them go. And as hard as it gets, you bear with them. And you do everything you can to love them and walk them through this. Okay? And then he goes on to say this. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. So as a community of people that Christ has called the church to be, are we doing everything we can to keep that unity through the bond of peace? Wow. That's awesome. And so this idea of how is unity created? Michelle and I used to do a marriage ministry a few years back, and man, it was so much fun. And we used to have these key terms that we would use that they were kind of our foundational things. Because when you do marriage ministries, you go through a lot. I mean, people mess up, there's all kinds of things, right? How many of you guys are married in here? Raise your hand. Okay, yeah, a lot of people. How many of you don't ever want to be married? Okay, no, I'm just kidding. It's hard. Marriage is hard work. Right? And you go through hard times and you go through seasons, right? And you go, and depending even, I mean, we have statistics say, hey, every 7 years you're going to go through a tough season, right? 7 years. And then there's like a 12-year, there's a tough one at 12. There's another tough one at like 22. And it just, because we're people, we're humans and we're messed up. And so we would always tell our couples, we would always say this, we'd say, hey, this is what you need to know is there is an enemy out there, and it's not your spouse. There's an enemy who wants to destroy your marriage, and it's not the one you wake up next to. And the reason we said that so much is because what happens is, all of a sudden in marriage, we get to this place where we see that person, and because we know them so well, right? We see all their weaknesses, we see all their junk. And it's easy to see them as the enemy. And that's exactly what Satan loves to do. Because when he can get in a marriage and he could say, hey, he can cause a divide, right? Because there's this unity, two or one. And he gets in there and he begins to speak and he begins to whisper, yeah, oh, they don't love you. Or yeah, they don't treat you like they used to. Or yeah, and all of a sudden he gets a foothold and he begins to divide. He wins. All he has to do is destroy unity. Now let me tell you this. It's the same exact thing for the church. There's no difference. The words used, the language, the unity as the church is one is just the same as marriage, right? Is the same thing. And so what you have to know in order for us to create unity, we have to know that there's a common enemy. And it's not the person sitting next to you. It's not the guy speaking on stage today. Right? It's not the elders. It's not, right, this person over here, that person over here, this group of people. There is one enemy, people, and it's Satan. And he wants to do everything he can to put doubts in your head, to destroy unity, to cause discord. Holy cow. To say it's us versus them, me versus you, instead of, hey, we are in this together because we're family, whether we like it or not. We have to work through our junk. Just like marriage. You got to work through your junk. You got to. Does that make sense? You guys, this is huge. So if we want unity, we have to understand that there's a common enemy. We also have to understand that you have to have a common purpose, right? You can't, there's a reason, right? There's a reason why we do what we do. And I'll talk a little bit about that at the end, but I had a friend of mine who, he became a senior pastor, and his first meeting with the church family, the police had to come. He got up on stage, was talking about some things, and he's big vision guy, amazing leader. He got up and said, hey, man, we're going to reach the lost people of this community, and we're going to do this. And there was a huge choir at that particular church that didn't like him already, didn't even know who he was. They actually had shirts against him when he showed up. When he started talking, they started climbing over the seats to go and attack him. They had to call the police, and some people got arrested, and they had to hold these people back from actually physically hurting this pastor because they were so ingrained with the way things were, they didn't want any changes to happen. Like, can you imagine that? There was this discord and disunity. It's amazing. The one lady particularly who was really, really against him, was an older lady, and she had been at the church forever. And she loved Jesus with everything, but she just didn't agree. She just was like so against what was going on. And so he just began talking with her and asked her a couple questions, and she was kind of brushing him off, and she'd sit in the back and mumble and tell all her friends what a terrible person he was, but still going to the church at the same time. Eventually, he found out that her grandson didn't know Jesus, and she loved her grandson. And so he began meeting with her grandson. He began sharing Christ with her grandson, and he led her grandson to Jesus. And it was an awesome kind of relationship that he built with this guy. But what do you think happened to that lady? She's in the front row, arms lifted high with the band that she hated, with the preacher she almost tried to kill, right? And creating some unity because they had a common purpose, right? And here's, when we strip it down, right, the peripheral things, who cares? What are we trying to do? We're trying to love people to Jesus. And we get caught up in these other things. And we get caught up in performance and how we do it, why, and really at the end of the day, we got to have a common purpose or there'll be no unity. Common enemy, common purpose. Another one is this, is stay in your lane. What do I mean by that is this. Everybody here has a gift. We were just talking in Ephesians, Corinthians, it talks about the church as a body. You all play a different part, right? So what's your part in that? And your part, you stay in your lane. I don't expect you to have my gifts. You shouldn't expect me to have your gifts. We are all gifted in different areas, and when we thrive in those areas, guys, that's when the church begins to explode and we begin to have unity. When I start looking outside my lane, wanting people to have the gifts that I have, that doesn't work. That's not going to work. I can't expect you to be me, and you can't expect me to be you. Some of you guys are amazing at doing things that I will never be able to do. There's a few things that I can do that you can't do, maybe one or two, because that's all I have. But I'm bringing it. That's what I got. Bring what you have. But don't get frustrated if other people don't have the same passions as you, right? That's the problem. And then we get, they don't like us. They don't like this ministry. They don't like, no, we love that ministry. It's just, that's what God has called you to do, not me. Stay in your lane. And then we could have unity and diversity because we need your gifts. We need your talents. Oh my goodness. But we don't need you telling everyone to have the same gifts and the same talents. And then the last one is this, is unity will always cost us something, always. So we must be willing to sacrifice, right? Here's maturity. Let me say it flat out, right? Selfishly, I want everything, but when I'm a mature person, I give up what I want. I do this for my kids every day. I give it all up for the better of the community. And for unity to happen, it costs you. There's no doubt. And if you're not willing to take that cost, I understand. But it can't happen without that. So you and I have to sacrifice. You and I have to give up something. And I'll even say this, if we find ourselves not sacrificing, we may be the problem. If there's no cost on my end, if there's no cost in my heart, if it's cost me nothing, if I'm not, then I would say I'm not letting unity happen. Does that make sense? And so unity costs us something always. So the last one is this, others before me, right? Me before others, that breaks down unity. Others before me, that creates unity. Now let me close this off. So what happens when we have unity? What happens when we start working together? I love Psalm 133, just so clear. How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. Do you know what the world sees? You know what people see when God's people, like when we love each other, we're unstoppable, right? And when we can agree on things, we could be unstoppable. And how good and pleasant it is. That word good means how right it is for God's people to be in unity. Like how right, it's just so right when it happens, right? And you know when you see it. There's churches I've been to that I love, and the reason I love being in it because everybody's like, there's this unity there. They know what they're doing, they know where they're going, and there's no discord or disunity. And there's like this power and this movement and this momentum. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens by hard work from everyone and learning and growing together. And it's right. That word pleasant means a sense of attractiveness. How attractive is it when people dwell in unity? Because the world goes, man, that is something I've never seen before. And the very thing that God put together for people to come to know him is the very thing that repels people in our world. Unity and disunity. So for God, unity is proper and it pleases him to no end. And so when we cast our differences aside and live in unity, then the world can see much clearer who God is. Now, let me share something with you. I just love our staff. So you're going to get a look behind the scenes of a kind of an email thread that went out yesterday or this past week. And what I want to share with you is just to kind of show you what happens behind the scenes here. And the heart of some people and why it's, well, I'll just read it. So let me read this to you. It says this. It says, hey, everyone. And this was to all the staff, the pastors, the ladies at the desks and all that. It says this. Hey, everyone. Today, a woman by the name of Bonnie came in looking for some help. Randy, Nancy, and I, this is from D, gave her food, some resources, and information on area resources for additional support and help. We had the chance to listen and pray with her. I don't know if she will return, but wanted to give you a heads up what we were able to do for her today. She did have a place to stay tonight, North Hollywood, I believe, and I think the next steps would be to have her connect with Benevolence should she come in again. D. Next email, Nancy and D. Man, you guys really demonstrated the heart of Jesus today. You made me proud to call you my friends. In the midst of what is going on within our church right now, I believe God brought Bonnie to the bridge to remind all of us of this. People are the most important thing to God, so they should be the most important thing to us as well. Everything else is peripheral at best. Let's keep running after the heart of God through Jesus Christ together. I love you guys, Randy. Here's the next email. I agree, Randy. I was thinking the whole time, oh, she is so loved by God, and I need to listen to her story and help her however I feasibly can. There are these moments I feel so inadequate and lost for how to help. I sure wish I had a pair of shoes in my car to give her. Had I been wearing my tennis shoes, I would have given them to her. I'm so glad Nancy had a sweater hanging in her office and I had a blanket in the car. I love you guys, and I'm really glad God brought Bonnie to us today. The last email. We each brought something of Jesus to these moments with Bonnie. Loving kindness, concern, gentleness, as well as the contact info, food, sweater, and a blanket. Listen to what she says here. Being Jesus to Bonnie unified us in those moments, and it's clearly a pleasure to serve alongside you. Love N, which is Nancy. Do you catch what Nancy picked up on? And what I think we all need to pick up on is, man, when we serve together for a common purpose and a common goal, it's unstoppable. The idea, right, of being able to help Bonnie, right, unifies. The more we're able to unify on those things, the more we're able to serve together. So when you're serving in children's ministry, you're serving communion, like we are unified in one purpose to glorify. And man, guys, that's unstoppable. That's unstoppable. And so my challenge is this: can we be a church that decides to partner together in our differences and our giftedness? Can we partner together to be the hands and feet to this community, to this neighborhood, to the people around us? Because I believe if we do, we could be a church that is unstoppable. God, I thank you for the opportunity just to share, just the conviction on my heart of what you're showing me, and I know showing our staff, and so many of us that are just going through a hard time right now, but in the midst of that hard time is great times of growth. And so I pray you strip us down into what you want us to be, Lord. And I pray, Lord, that if there's people here really struggling with that your Spirit would convict their heart and give them the comfort that they need, that you would guide them and show them who you are, Lord. I just thank you so much for the church and for the opportunity to serve you in it. Amen.